I really admire about you is you do such a great job of teaching. You make it approachable and you make it seem like something that any of us can start because it does seem intimidating, which is so odd because it's just soil, it's just plants, you know? But I think for most of us in this day and age, getting dirty is a little intimidating and overwhelming.
For sure. I think that people, and I do get it too, it does require a little bit of setup, right? A little bit of investment and kind of feeling like, where do I start? How much time do I have to dedicate to this? Getting it set up and going. And that is often one of my top questions, like, well, where do I begin? So I always do want to be teaching and really just inspiring people to feel like FOMO, like I'm missing out if I'm not gardening and growing my own food because I think you are, but I do see how it can be overwhelming feeling like you need the right amount of space and sun and water. And it's just one of those things I feel like once you're like, I'm ready, let's just go, I'm going to mess up. I mean, my first garden, the first time I grew vegetables was in like an 18-inch pot. I didn't even have my raised beds. And then once I became obsessed with that, which was its own little saga, things like started really rolling.
So if someone was going to get started with their first raised bed, or maybe they can do two raised beds, should they just approach with basic vegetables, or do they need to really look up what's best for their region and go from there?
Yeah. The reason you do want to use an approach that's really local is we all live in a hardiness zone. So the United States is broken into about 11 hardiness zones. We actually really only have like 9, but it doesn't matter. So we're in Southern California in zone 10. And the
Mhm.
reason that's important is certain varieties of vegetable grow better in certain areas, but that also helps you dictate the timing of when to start them. We are unique in Southern California because we don't really have a frost. So our seasons are kind of flipped sometimes, and we can start things at different times than like the average gardener. But the most of the country is like putting plants in the ground as soon as the danger of frost has passed, and then growing things right up until frost is looming and coming forward. And those frost dates are going to dictate when you start your seeds, when the ground is workable, so that you know like how to time everything. So with your first two raised beds, you really just want to keep in mind, when can I start planting and what will do well. I mean, most regions of the US are going to be able to grow the basics like the tomatoes and the cucumbers and the squash, and it all is just a matter of beans, peas, of when you plant it. We are like kind of going near subtropical, so we have the ability to grow like citrus, avocado, papaya. Like, we can grow the crazy things, but there are some things we can't grow. Some things require chill hours, or they just have a really hard time with our climate. So like rhubarb's kind of hard for us. We
Yeah.
can't a lot of stone fruit or apples.
Mhm.
We have to get very
Mhm.
specific with that. There are just, your hardiness zone is your boundary, and that's what's going to help you determine really when to grow which things.